Perfect, Devin. Thank you. Officially, welcome you all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You must know by now, I am Huri Gadelekian, the chair of NGO CSW New York. We do have the interpretation. Please look at the instructions and follow them. And I will ask for anybody who's speaking to speak as clearly and slowly as possible. I am so excited about today's events. We have a full program, so we're going to keep moving fast and speak slowly, right? This is one of my final months. We at NGO CSW New York, the New York section, is having a transition of power. I will step down as chair on June 15, and a new slate will take over. I'm very, very excited about this. We've had a nominating committee going through all the process. We have bylaws, which actually, let me just share that while I'm speaking so people can take a look at it. What's important here is that these bylaws are literally for NGO CSW New York. Our audience has grown globally, as you know, and we don't meet personally as much anymore, but we are following the bylaws, which means that we have to announce these things in our monthly meetings so our global constituents can learn about it as well. But the bylaws say that the executive committee must be local from New York. So our nominating committee has gone through the process. We have an incredible slate, but we will take the time at the end of this meeting so that our global constituents do not need to be here for that. But if you want to stay in here, that's absolutely fine. And they will make the announcement and give everyone a chance to agree and all of that. So again, I'm going to read, we have interpretation. So if you want to click down below, we have two really good announcements this morning. We have two guests that are going to share with us information that I personally am actually very excited about as well. One is from Generation Equality Forum. As you all know, we've been a convener since day one. And we have Amelia from Global Fund for Women, who's going to speak to us about the feminist accountability framework, which was announced during CSW67. And I might confess, I actually didn't make it because there were so many events. But we also want to share this and make it on record so everybody knows what's happening with Generation Equality Forum. Following that, we're going to hear from Aidan from OHCHR. I'll do a quick thank you and intro, but just to prepare you, we were in a meeting with OHCHR and we were just floored at the amount of work they're doing at the UN. And you know how we always, in the gender work, we're always complaining about silos. So whenever we see any kind of UN entity who's trying to break silos, who's trying to bring gender equality into all of the aspects of the UN, we get excited. So we invited them to talk to us about care and support. So without further ado, I'm going to give the floor to Amelia. As usual, introduce yourselves in the chat, communicate with each other as much as you want while listening and taking notes, because, you know, we're feminists, we multitask. And also, I'll be there to answer questions throughout. Oh, the most important thing, the breakout sessions. How could I forget that? So we're excited, as the program showed you, we're going to have regional conversations today. And I'm very excited about that. We have representations from UN Women, from the regions, some regions, and we have representation from our regions, NGO CSW regions as well. And what we're going to do, though, with interpretation, just so that you know, because they can't interpret in the breakout sessions, interpreters will stay in the main room. So anybody who really needs interpretation, they can have their own breakout session. I know that's going to be kind of weird if it's representative of all the regions, but I'm sure something good will come out of that. But then there will be 5 regional breakout rooms that you're going to get to choose. Devin will put all the instructions on the screen, and then we go into our breakout sessions for about 35-40 minutes. We're giving enough time because we always, by the time we start talking, we have to come back. But we will report back today after the breakout sessions at 9:30. We come back and report. So please pick somebody to report as well. And then there will be somebody, you know, helping moderate. There will be questions on the screens helping you lead the discussion. Okay, I think I went through everything. Thank you so much. And now the floor is for Amelia. Amelia, please let us know what is happening, even since your announcement during the CSW. How is it moving forward, the whole trajectory? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Hori. Thank you so much for the introduction. My name's Amelia. I am the Global Advocacy and Accountability Lead at Global Fund for Women. I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you a little bit about the feminist accountability framework that was launched during CSW67 in March this year. Like Hori said, we were very lucky to be able to, come to New York in person and, bring all of the amazing grassroots organizations we've been working with to present this framework. So yes, I'm sorry, I should have asked before, will you be projecting the PowerPoint presentation or should I be doing that?
Sorry, I can for sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, that would be great.
Hold on 1 second.
We just made a really very simple PowerPoint presentation to basically walk you through what the feminist accountability framework is, and how we're going to be moving forward with implementing sort of the roadmap that we outlined during CSW, how we'll be moving forward from here until CSW next year. Thank you so much. So yes, like I said before, what we did was launch this feminist accountability framework at CSW last year. If you want to check it out yourselves, you can just go to this QR code there and it'll bring you to a link for the framework. It's available in 4 languages: English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese, which are the languages in which we are working with the different organizations, grassroots organizations. Next slide, please. Okay. So very simply, the feminist accountability framework is a mechanism to help move the Generation Equality Forum from promises to action. In the actual framework itself, what you're going to find is first a summary of the co-design process to create what was this feminist accountability roadmap. Then from the second part is what our findings were. The findings around kind of what the status of these commitments was and what some of the different moving pieces were looking like so far. The third part was a 3-part plan to gather additional data, receive community feedback, and support evidence-based and community-led advocacy. Next slide, please. So I want to talk to you a little bit about who the different members of the co-design group were. So the main regions of focus for work were Africa, Asia Pacific, and Latin America and the Caribbean. So in those regions, we have 22 partners, grassroots organizations who were part of the co-design process, who came together, worked together to create a roadmap for moving forward. We also have a steering committee that at the time was made up of 6 different steering committee members, also from the same regions. We worked on a very specific representation criteria to make sure that we had representation, obviously, from the different regions, but as well as from different identity groups that potentially may or may not have been adequately represented during generation equality. Yes, within the co-design group, 45% of participants were either youth-focused or youth-led organizations, to really bring that aspect forward and really have this be fulfilling the generation part of generation equality. We also wanted to make sure that there was adequate representation across Action Coalition themes, to make sure that as we move forward and as we start unfolding the plan and connecting with the different elements of generation equality, that we were working on all the different themes and aspects properly. And we also look to have expertise in advocacy, community-led processes, data collection and analysis, and communications, to make sure that the work being done was not just being spoken about in certain circles where everybody already kind of knew about the work, but the idea is that through an integrated data advocacy and communication strategy, that we could start bringing this work outwardly into a public that maybe hasn't interacted so much with generation equality, as well as bring it to the communities that are directly being impacted by the commitments that were made. Next slide, please. So there were some initial findings that were made. The first and kind of like most glaring initial finding was that with regards to commitments, there was very low transparency and a lack of data accessibility, which meant that when presented with the dashboard around commitments, even our data experts that came in and looked around at the data, tried to disaggregate the data, noticed that it was very hard to read, that it was not very accessible to just any person who wanted to come in and ask some questions around generation equality. Some of the data was duplicated. It shows up in different parts, so you don't know if it's two different commitments or if it's the same one that just kind of pertains to different aspects. There's a lot of information that, for privacy reasons, isn't showing up, and so there's a lot of gaps in knowledge around who has committed exactly to what and where it's been committed, as well as there's a lot of commitments that are considered global, and so very difficult to break down for accountability because it's difficult to pinpoint exactly where they should be going and who they should be coming from. So based on that, we asked ourselves, how can we actually hold commitment makers accountable if we don't know the details of where this money or these commitments or these programs or these policies are supposed to be going, how they're supposed to be going, and at what point they're supposed to be done. That was our first finding. The second finding was that there were a lot of inequities and discrepancies within commitments themselves. So there isn't an even distribution for commitments, even across action coalitions. That's mostly due to the fact that commitments were voluntary, of course. And so people came in, made commitments about the specific things that pertain to their area of work, their field of expertise, their area of interest, which made for an uneven outcome in commitments. There are some action coalitions that have extremely high commitments financially, but we don't see a lot of policy. And the same is true vice versa. We also noticed that there's kind of low commitment towards marginalized, historically marginalized groups, commitments for impact and commitments for financial commitments. And then mainly, there are very few commitments directed towards women's rights organizations and civil society organizations. The third finding, which is, very coherent with a lot of other sources that are coming out around this topic, is that, of course, funding for gender equality is declining. So since the commitments were made in 2019, commitments specifically towards women's rights organizations and feminist movements have been declining as an overall percentage of aid. The actual number is that only 0.34% of philanthropic and bilateral funding to goes to women's rights and feminist organizations. So again, that finding is mostly just pretty in line with a lot of the other literature that's coming out around that, at UN level, at OECD level, and this was just matching that. And then the last finding that came out is that the indicators from the action coalitions for measuring how the progress for commitments was going is incomplete. So when talking with a lot of the grassroots organizations that we were working with, the main issue that was coming up was that the few commitments that were made around policy, around law, around even programs were very, very oriented towards law. So they were oriented towards creating frameworks, legal frameworks around gender equality, but they were less focused on the actual implementation of these frameworks. So a lot of feminists will know that it's not much use to have laws be passed left and right towards gender equality if there's not a plan towards implementing it and a set of actions coming forward to make sure that these laws actually make a lot of sense. So that was one of the big disconnects that was coming up every time that we were looking at commitments around policy. There's also a lack of contextualization. These commitments were made by commitment makers and not necessarily in consultation with the people who were impacted by the commitments. And so the commitments have certain goals that don't necessarily match the needs of the communities on the ground. So this lack of contextualization actually makes it so that commitments, even if implemented correctly, could be not necessarily useless, but inefficient, let's say, because they don't necessarily match the needs and the reality of the communities on the ground. Next slide, please. So we have been working for the past almost year now on creating this feminist accountability framework, which is the roadmap for moving forward for making sure that these commitments actually get implemented. And now between CSW of last year and CSW of this year and CSW of next year, what we're doing is moving into the implementation phase, moving into actually shifting into gear and making sure that we put some action to these words. So in order to do that, we have built a plan around 8 different pilot countries where we're going to have a community-led approach towards attempting to implement these commitments. The 8 different pilot countries are across the 3 priority regions that are Latin America and the Caribbean, Africa, and Asia Pacific. These 8 countries are Nepal, India, Fiji, Cambodia, Kenya, Burkina Faso, Guatemala, and Brazil. What we aim to do with this is to engage a broad set of stakeholders, including but also going beyond those who have engaged with generation equality in the past, to bring together these stakeholders to firstly look through the data, disaggregate the data, sift through the data, and be able to contextualize it by receiving feedback, by working with communities to kind of take the data that we have fleshed out a little bit, work with communities through consultations and through getting feedback to put the actual data into context and see what works, what doesn't work, what do communities need, what are advocacy priorities, what are the advocacy goals, and what are the implementation goals in each one of these countries based on what we're finding through the data. What are some, gaps in these commitments? What are some gaps towards implementation? And what are some things that we need to kind of course correct to make sure that if we want to do an implementation of these commitments, it makes sense on the ground. So again, the data is going to be used to create an evidence-based and community-led advocacy strategy that's going to take into account a power analysis of who the different stakeholders are on the ground, who can be mobilized towards this implementation, and how we can make sure that there's power brokerage actually happening on the ground to see these commitments go through. Next slide, please. So moving forward, we have these 22 feminist accountability implementation partners. And then we also have a steering committee that's shifting a little bit from what it was last time. So these are all the different organizations that are involved in the implementation phase between now until CSW of next year. Is this the last slide, or was there?
Yes, and thank you so much, Amelia. That was a lot of information, but it really did put it into a perspective in my head as well. So I really appreciate you taking the time and going through it. And now when we look at the website, we can make the connections much easier. And I am looking forward to seeing what the steering committee will do in the coming year. Because, yeah, what's the point of $40 billion and all the work that we put into it if there's no accountability? But I want to thank you and move on really quickly. Yes, thanks for taking the time to be here. And I'm going to move, unfortunately, really quickly to Aiden, because I'm looking at the clock and, we always plan these programs like with perfect schedule and then we fall behind a little bit. Aiden, I hope you are here and we can spotlight you. There you are. And thank you for that meeting. You inspired us. And of course, right there in the meeting, it was only a week ago, maybe, we said, can you come next week, please? And you have about 5 minutes. And I know that's not a lot, but at least, share the link and the thought behind it. And our group will follow up and learn more and ask questions later. But if anybody has questions right now, please put it in the chat as well. I'll be following you. Thank you, Aiden. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Huri. And I think 5 minutes works. As you can see, I'm on my phone, my laptop, right? So I think these 5 minutes work perfectly. To introduce myself, my name is Aiden Figueroa. I work for the Women, Human Rights and Gender section at the UN OHCHR, United Nations Human Rights, focused on gender equality in the context of socioeconomic equality, meaning that we work towards the socioeconomic equality of women in the larger context of care and support. And I think maybe before delving into our current work, it's good to take a step backward, back to the pandemic that has shown us and has exacerbated the issue of the unpaid care work women perform. The unpaid care work in the sense of caring for family members, children, parents, and how that affects women through their life course. That specific focus has been introduced, developed, and has been pushed forward by women equality organizations that focus on the unpaid care work that women perform. And we at United Nations OHCHR fully agree with that perspective. It is important to also focus on the unpaid care work that women perform as caregivers. But that we should broaden the narrative and broaden the fact that women are not only caregivers and perform unpaid care, have unpaid care responsibilities, but at the same time need their own care and support, and how that interlinks. And that by addressing the issue of unpaid care work, we should also look into the rights of care receivers, specifically persons with disabilities, older persons, children and youth. And again, really seeing that women fall in those categories as well, meaning that they are women with disabilities, older women, young women and girls, both having these care giving responsibilities, as I said and introduced, most often unpaid care responsibilities, but at the same time needing care and support. And I'm really happy that Huri at the beginning of this meeting also introduced the breaking of silos that we at OHHR tried to accomplish. So by having this narrative, we're now working closely together with our colleagues, working on behalf of persons with disabilities. We're closely working together with our colleagues working on behalf of older persons and children and youth. Again, these rights holders, including women with disabilities, including older women, and including younger women and girls, and how the care and support systems, our traditional care and support systems, do not fully take into account their perspectives, their rights, and thus have a direct effect on gender equality, both in the sense of women as care receivers, but also in the sense of women as caregivers. So at OHHR, also in line of the Human Rights 75 celebration of this year, have been spotlighting important human rights issues, one of which we have identified as the traditional care and support systems that are not human rights based, and working towards care and support systems that are not only human rights based, but also age sensitive, gender responsive, and disability inclusive. Why this is important also at also in this discussion and the processes with CSW is that we have identified that care and support are one of the important levers to take into consideration when discussing the Sustainable Development Goals, is that in order to achieve those goals that we've now set at 2030, we should act now and have those care and support systems be human rights based, and including that narrative that we have to be disability inclusive, gender responsive, and age sensitive in order to make sure that all rights and all rights holders are being addressed, and that we break those silos between the rights holders, and that in this case is caregivers and care receivers. So we have been engaging closely with the SDG Summit, and I know this is a lot of information, but I'll share some links in the chat after my few minutes as well. But also seeing how those SDG Summit proceedings directly correlate and interlink with the CSW, the upcoming Summit of the Future, and that we should really aim for those linkages to make sure that the issue of care and support is holistically addressed. Considering my short amount of time, I'll leave it here for now. As said, I'll share some interesting links in the chat so you may be able to look at those after these few minutes have ended. I'll also share my contact details so that if you or your organization or you know of anyone who closely works on the topic of care and support or on those interlinking issues, again, perhaps specifically on older women or women with disabilities, please feel free to reach out. And I want to thank Huri again for this wonderful opportunity. And I look forward to this continuing engagement. Thank you.
Aiden, so professional, so on time, and thank you. Please share your email and the links, and this will be in the notes, so it will go out to our 50,000 mailing list. So people who are not here today, there was a little glitch. One of the times that we announced was a little different than normal. So, but everything is being recorded and written down, so we will share this information. And thank you for doing the hard work of breaking the silos. I mean, we were so excited to hear that, and we're here to support you in any way we can. Until next time, thank you, Aiden.
Until next time, thank you, Huri. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, without further ado, we're going to get some exciting news now from our office, Devin. We're going to give it about 10 minutes to share some of the results of our CSW67 survey and numbers. It's just, you know, makes us feel proud that we did survive our first hybrid, and maybe we're still recovering from it, but we survived it. And thank you all for supporting us, everybody who's here who really helped make it happen. So Devin, I'm going to give you the floor before we go into breakout sessions. And perhaps, you know, after that, we'll just directly go into breakout sessions because you're going to give us instructions on how that goes, right? Thank you so much. And I'll just repeat it. Those who want interpretation, stay in the main room, and then we'll have regionals as well. Thank you for all the hard work.
Thanks, Hootie. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. So what I'm going to be talking about today is the breakdown of some of our participant feedback from the NGO CSW 67 forum, and also some like statistics of kind of like the demographics of who was there. Yeah, so many of you probably know that every year we send out a survey, a feedback survey to forum participants so that they can give us some feedback on their experience and some recommendations on what we can do in future forums, what they found helpful, what they didn't find helpful. So I'm not going to go through this whole deck. I will put the link in the chat so you can go through and look at all of the details yourself if you're interested. Also, I will mention that we will be publishing the official report of the forum in the next couple of weeks. So be on the lookout for that, and that will also include some of these statistics and yeah, and information that's included in this deck. So this is what this deck includes. Like I said, I'm not going to go through all of this today, but in case you're interested about any of these things, please do take a look on your own time. Sorry, I'm just muting people who are unmuted. Okay, so I'll go through today the demographics, the general forum experience, and then I'll skip to some comments and suggestions from our participants about how to improve future forums and just some of the most common comments that we got. So for demographics, one really exciting thing about this forum is that we had almost half of participants were youth under 40. I believe it's about 45% were under 40. As you can see, the largest group were 25 to 39. So that's really exciting. The youth engagement was a lot this year. Gender, which should not be a surprise to anyone, 85% female, 13% male, and small percentages of non-binary and trans folks. The regional breakdown, about 50% from North America and Europe, and the other 50% from the rest of the regions. ECOSOC accredited organizations, 65% most participants who were part of an organization. That organization was ECOSOC accredited. And most people joined the forum virtually. So we have about half and half of people who joined virtually and people who participated in person in some way. So some people just participated in person with no online engagement, and some people participated in both of those spaces. And we have a huge percentage of people who attended who this was their first NGO CSW forum. So about 67% of participants were new to the forum. And yeah, so that's kind of a breakdown of the demographics, who was there at the forum. And now I'll go through some of the general forum experience. So if people found it to be a productive experience, most people did. This is on a scale of 1 to 10. So as you can see, most people found it productive. The top 3 aspects of the forum. So in the survey, we asked people to choose their top 3 parts of the forum. Parallel events, which is almost always people's favorite part. 70% said parallel events were their favorite. 51% said networking was their favorite, and 40% said the civil society briefings were their favorite. And what part of the forum did participants find most beneficial? So actually, people found the civil society briefings the most beneficial, which I think is from past years. I think it's almost always parallel events. And as you can see, they're pretty much almost tied, but that was kind of an interesting result. 66% said parallel events were the most beneficial, and 50% said networking was the most beneficial. And then we also asked people what their least beneficial, or what part they found least beneficial. And while a lot of people did say, none of it was not beneficial, I can't choose, but the top 3 that people did find the least beneficial was advocacy training, the orientation session, and regional caucuses. And then these are some of the lessons learned from the forum that people will take forward in their work. So the 2 lowest responses were around advocating and lobbying to member states, but we have a pretty high percentage of people who are going to improve the work within their organization, build their advocacy, expand their network, and keep better informed of their country's preparations for CSW. And people's preferred format for future forums is definitely a hybrid format, again, with some people saying in person and some saying virtual. So I'm gonna just skip to the end now. Like I said, I'll put this link in the chat. So if you want to learn about the other things that are in this deck, definitely check it out. But I'm just gonna skip through for sake of time. It's pretty long, as you can see too, so I definitely don't want to go through all of it. But this part is, it outlines some of the most frequent, relevant, and notable comments and suggestions. So these are just some of the most common responses we got. So some recommendations from participants about how to improve for future forums: having an easier virtual portal to navigate, better building security, more in-person networking sessions, and better mitigation of technical issues. Of course, we did get lots of other suggestions and recommendations as well, but for the sake of this deck, we just included, again, some of the most common answers and the most relevant. And then lastly, some in-person experience feedback. These, again, are the most common. Several people put these down as their answer. So we got some comments that there were too many events. The transition time between events is not long enough. Parallel events clashing with other high-level popular events and sessions. For example, some of the main sessions for the official UN CSW. And then the need for a physical space to access virtual events and activities during the forum. So one of the comments that we've got, and one of the things that we also ourselves noticed was if you were attending in person, it was a little bit hard to find a space to go and join any virtual events without having to like go back to your hotel room or something like that. Yeah, so that's it from me. I will put this link in the chat, and definitely check this out on your own time. There's a lot of interesting information in here. And like I said before, we will be publishing a NGO CSW67 forum report, as we have done in past years. So keep an eye out for that. That'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks. And it'll have a lot of this information that I just shared and even more. Yeah, so that is it from me. And I will now talk about our breakout rooms. First, let me just put the deck in the chat. Okay. Oop. Sorry, I accidentally sent it to a person instead of everyone. Sorry, guys, just bear with me for a second. Okay, so there's the link in the chat if you want to explore that deck a little bit more. So now we'll go into our breakout sessions. And
I'm hoping that this time around we definitely had enough time in breakout sessions. I know we did. It was really nice to have a relaxed conversation where there was not too many hands that we were not getting into. I'm not sure how it was in other breakout sessions. And I apologize, some of our facilitators did not show up, but I definitely enjoyed our I stayed in the main room. So let me start with perhaps North America. Pam, do you have somebody who's going to report back, or do you want to give us a synopsis of how it went? It started out quite interesting. I was there in the beginning. Or do you
Thank you. We did not specify a reporter, but I can give a quick synopsis, and we have people in our group who can step in if I've left anything out. Basically, we had pros and cons on the platform on whether or not we had too many or a perfect amount of parallel events. We had a good discussion on the agreed conclusions, on the positives and negatives about the agreed conclusions. Some of the positives, which I always like to refer to first, is that the marital status can be used as should be a disaggregated data point. Widows were included, teen suicide. Negatives were that the TV, the technology facilitated gender-based violence term, was not used as a concise term. However, the topic was infused in the document. Women and girls of African descent were not actually focused on in that there was no mention of sexual orientation and gender identity. I think that our group looked at the experience in its totality, and we had brilliant women who gave their opinions, and I hope that we will be able to continue this type of discussion. There was a comment about the regional caucuses and how it can become an ongoing event in each region. And I think that that's something that we have to think about, how we can encourage the members of the regional caucuses to continue that advocacy back in their regions. And I also put a link to the NGO CSW advocacy toolkit because implementation came up, and the NGO CSW advocacy toolkit is a great tool for people in civil society activists to begin to look at implementation.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pamela, for that wonderful synopsis. Let's go to Asia Pacific, because I saw a comment that they had a great conversation. I think, Ivy, you were leading that. I don't know if anybody else is going to report.
I think actually Omer was leading that group.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I can support too, but I don't know if Omer wants to start, and I can. Okay.
Sure. No worries. I think I don't know. I think I saw you taking notes there. But because I wasn't, I was just yapping. So generally, I think the main issue from our region is that the Asia Pacific CSW process in and of itself is so mysterious. We actually don't know what has been going on. And there is very little information about what civil society can do to engage if the process is happening. What are the entry points? What are the dates? We understand that other regions at other regional commissions are hosting conversations, briefings, etc. But we are just sorely lacking the information about whether or not this is happening at SCAP here in Bangkok, or and in that respect, how to engage. It seems a bit mysterious. So that was the key one, sort of like, we actually don't know what's happening. And as sort of the outcomes from that were to sort of reach out to some of the key actors and stakeholders here, which include UN Women, and perhaps some other SCAP Secretariat. And yeah, that's the sort of the key action point that we have from the breakout session. I don't know, Ivy, if you want to add anything to that.
No, I think that was the big thing. And also, because NGO CSW Asia Pacific does exist, but we're not, sure if they're meeting regularly. And so at this point, is it okay to just self-organize? But there is a group that is growing, starting from this past CSW, of people that want to start being engaged and start thinking about having like their own regional statements or caucusing in preparation for and after CSW. And so I said that NGO CSW New York is supporting, but we're not specifically leading this. So but it's a delicate balance that we're trying to keep, but we definitely know that this region needs some support. And yeah, and a lot of mention around adolescent girls, and the girl child was mentioned during this conversation. Yeah.
Fantastic. Really rich interventions, especially about the regions. And I have so much to say about that. Maybe we should just hear from South America and MENA, and then I'll put my comments together, including with the breakout session that I was in, the main room. Oh, hold on. It's just South America. There was no MENA region. So South America, who was leading there, Rosa, anybody?
Referring to Latin America and the Caribbean, Hori?
Yes.
Latin American, the Caribbean.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So this is Terry Ince. I will start, and I will ask my colleagues who were in that room to chime in. I think the overall consensus is that the caucuses are important. The Latin American Caribbean caucus is a strong caucus. And there was discussion around the amount of work that is done even before CSW67, CSWs that is brought to the caucus during CSW, like the ministerial meetings that happens in the region prior to CSW, and they bring the leadership of the caucus brings that richness. This past year, or this year, a declaration, and it has been done in the past, but the declaration is made and presented at the ministerial meetings. And this year it was also brought to the CSW, and during the caucus meeting, as well as during the caucus parallel event, that declaration was presented there as well. So the consensus is that there is a need for it to continue. There's also a need to support the leadership so that members or people in the region or from the region who are attending or participating at the CSWs participate at the caucus meeting. So it's up to us now all to find ways to encourage others to be more present during the caucus meeting. But the caucus meetings are definitely needed, and we want to see it continue. And I'll ask my colleagues. Oh, there was also one colleague who shared that it was her very first CSW because of passport and I guess immigration issues. She wasn't able to get onto the plaza to participate in some of those high level events that happens on the plaza. But overall, it was a good experience for her. And I think I'll pause there and ask my colleagues if there's anything else that anyone else would like to share. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. If I can just jump in and highlight some other points. Our facilitator had a last minute cancellation, so thanks, Terry, for stepping in, and Lisa as well with interpretation. To highlight, the region is a very vibrant, politically engaged region, and they provide leadership, as Terry said, in terms of the prep work that goes in to the CSW. There's the prep work for the CSW in particular, and then there's other regional work that's done independent through the ECLAC process, through other processes. And that leadership, that development of positions feeds into the CSW, and it becomes a very important foundation from which other regions can draw upon and look to. So that came out very clearly. The other issue is there was support for these regional caucuses. One main area of request for support was around translation, and highlighting, one colleague highlighted the fact that Latin America and the Caribbean has not just one language, we know, 2, 3, 4 languages. And Caribbean in particular is English speaking and Spanish speaking. So interpretation and translation is really important, really key for the functioning efficiently of that region. And so there was a strong request for support in that area. About half the group, maybe less, had been engaged in the regional caucuses prior to. So I think that there's room also for growing that. And let me just ask if there are any other colleagues, otros colegas, who can provide any other points. Thank you so much.
Sarah, is that with South America, Latin America, Caribbean?
No, sorry, it was Africa.
And you have a comment?
Yes, because I was there and then I was kicked out by the network. So I didn't give our own contributions from Cameroon. Because when we got back, I attended the CSW. That was my first time. And when we got back, we tried to have a kind of restitution where we brought in grassroots women to talk to them what the CSW is all about and what we had learned from the various work breakout rooms or events that took place, side events that took place. So we are looking at coming with more women and coming with the voices of the women, those that don't have that opportunity to get to the CSW. But we want that their voices should be heard within those spaces. So we are planning on organizing a series of these kind of talks and gatherings so that we have the women's contribution when we get back to those spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I see two more hands, but we need to also just wrap up. Are you all speaking from Africa region caucus?
No,
Okay,
the African region had
it was
a
left
caucus
out.
meeting.
Sorry, Faustina.
Africa group had a meeting, and we need
Faustina,
to
can you? Sorry, Faustina, if we had a meeting with the Africa group, and we've got some points, but I'm not sure, Hori, because when you were mentioning the groups, you didn't mention Africa. So can we give our feedback now?
Absolutely, that's exactly what I'm saying. Was there somebody who was leading Africa?
Yes, there was no chair there, so I just took over. Karen from CSVR. So these are the issues that came out when we looked at the hosting of it in New York. It was around the structural issues, in terms of where it was held, the participation, and then also it looked at some of the lessons that we found was that people couldn't attend all of the agenda and the way it was, the number of events, especially the parallel events as well. So that was around the structural issues. Then we looked at what are some of the things that we struggle with in Africa, and as Africa as a continent, and we saw that there was gap in terms of cohesion amongst the African civil society partnerships, and then looking at how do we come up with gaps to address country level process, to influence country level processes that then influences regional, sub-regional and regional processes that links up to it. There was a huge call, consistent call for an Africa NGO CSW. So there was quite a number of participants or delegates in the group that requested that. And then we looked at the theme for the theme was digital, how to bridge the gap. And I think I think the exclusion came about. We felt it was an issue of exclusion there, because Africa is a continent that has the biggest problem or challenges around digital, with the digital divide, and the fact that we are, Africa gets it much later than the other countries. We battle with access, we battle with data, we battle with connectivity. I mean, Sarah came on before us and she didn't know that we had already had a gap group, and these are the discussions that happened because she got kicked out of due to network issues. So you can see the level at which it is. And then we looked at the gaps around for Africa. We lack knowledge on how to analyze and contribute to the conclusions and to the reports, okay? So there was a request for training around that. We rely on, as a continent, we are struggling with the digital adoption, okay? So I've pointed that out. And then we also looked at the issue around the hybrid session. It didn't work for everybody. I go back to the digital issues in Africa. People that needed to attend battled with that. There was a request around ensuring an African or a rotation of the CSW, not particularly US, but can it be rotated 67 years US? Can we rotate to other countries where it is most needed, where the most impact is? Because, and the needs are most prevalent in rural communities, okay? And then the other one was around, we have to take into consideration the differences and the issues around inclusion and exclusion. Then the other one was around the fact that we regionally, what we can do is establish, we need to establish national structures, sub-regional structures that will monitor progress in the region and look at the 55 country member states on the African region. How do we streamline CSO processes? The other thing that came out in the discussions was around the fact that governments feeding into the process, but how are they ensuring that they have contributions, and very concrete contributions from the CSOs themselves. So that level there seems to be a communication issue there. Yeah, so those were some of the things, and I'm asking our Africa participants, there were 41 members in the group. If there's anything I left out or skipped over, please feel free to input. Thank you.
Thank you, Faustina. I definitely want to give the floor to Visaji, who had started talking, and I want her to.
That was me.
That
was Karen.
Okay. Confusing me here. All right. Thank you so much. That was really in depth. And thank you for taking care of yourselves amongst yourselves. Because again, here's the issue, right? Where our regions are not as cohesive as we would like them to be. Nasreen, you have your hand up. Is that something quick? Okay, could be a mistake. I don't know. Nasreen? Anyway, we have only a few minutes left, and I'm so grateful for all of you managing yourselves when facilitators didn't show up. And it sounds like we got lots of information that we can use in our discussions to bring it all together. And I think what really keeps popping up in general, especially if we're talking regionally, is more effort in the regions. And it's interesting because we really got 3 or 4 responses from UN Women regions, but they're not here today. So something must have happened. And I know they know it was 8 a.m. because we personally invited them, and the email said, your session will start at 8:45. So I know it was a timing issue. It was not a timing issue with them. So we'll follow up and see what happened there, but also our own regions, our own civil society regions who were, who we wanted them to be here, were not able to be here. So this obviously gives you a direct response into why we're missing this connection. And it is so important. And I'm going to repeat it. I feel like I'm saying it way too many times. I have no problem with rotating CSWs. I think it should be in different regions. We would love to come and visit you as well in different regions and have these discussions. And on the other hand, I always say, we don't all have to travel, right? I think it's so important for organizations to take on the responsibility of communicating and creating their own layers of information. So, like, for example, one organization doesn't have to travel with 200 members. You can train 20 members who can then train the 200 when they come back. And the final thing that I want to say is it actually came from a US intervention about peace and prevention, and that's resonating with me because we've got to figure out ways of preventing violence, preventing health issues, preventing war, and to have any hope in this world to move forward, right? So I'm going to take this moment to thank you all again and let people know that if you do want to leave, this is the end of our program. We are going to move on to our nominating committee, and I didn't name them earlier, so I want to right now thank the fabulous 5-member nominating committee who helped us out with the slate. The slate was announced weeks ago. We already sent it out. I can put the link of the slate again, but let me just quickly say I'm so grateful for the co-chairs, Victoria Edmonds, who everybody in New York knows, and Cecily Kern, who's been amazing with her response and just doing her duty as co-chair, and the fabulous members, Mary Luke, Winifred Doherty, who everybody knows as well. I don't know if Mary Luke is here, I don't see her, and Saida Rizvi. We tried to bring as diverse in age and representation members as possible. And we're very grateful for everybody who sent in their applications, or whatever you want to call them, their interests. I'm now going to hand the floor over to Cecily, who will tell you the slate and, oh, and I also will share the bylaws as I shared earlier, so that everybody knows why we're doing this. Cecily, the floor is yours. And thank you again for the whole nominating committee. Goodbye.
Thank you, Huri. And yes, on behalf of the 2023 NGO CSW Nominations Committee, I am pleased to announce the slate for the Executive Committee for the 2023-2025 term. It has been shared in the announcement previously, but I'm just going to read them out. Co-chairs Ivy Cook, Soka Gakkai International, Pamela Morgan, Santa International. Vice Chair Rosa Lizarde, Feminist Task Force. Recording Secretary Louisa Kislinger, United Nations Foundation. Communications Secretary Jillian D'Souza Nazareth, Red Dot Foundation. Treasurer Rahel Weigel, Poverty Elimination and Community Education. And the members at large, Rosemary Barbaret, Sophia Rameshvar, and Suleika Frank. And of course, our immediate past chair, Ulrike Lekian. So many thanks to the current executive committee for your commitment and service to NGO CSW over the past 3 years, and for sharing your insights as we went through this process to identify and put together a slate for the new executive committee. To Devin for your technical support in helping us put together the email on the online form. To all of you members of NGO CSW who submitted nominations through that form, and to those who emerged from that process, who we were able to follow up with and get to know more about their many talents and visions for the future of NGO CSW. This has been a very thorough months-long process, and I believe we've arrived at a great list of candidates who will lead and guide NGO CSW New York for the next 2 years. So that being said, this is the opportunity for members of NGO CSW to make nominations from the floor. Thank you, Huri, for sharing the bylaws in the chat at the beginning of the meeting. The bylaws are also linked in the various meeting announcements that were circulated to the membership by email. If you take the floor to make a nomination, please ensure that you have read the bylaws and that you're sure that the person that you're seeking to nominate is eligible to serve on the executive committee for the position you're nominating them for. Any nomination from the floor must be seconded, and they must follow the same process of formal endorsement from their organizations that the individuals on the current slate have completed. If there are nominations from the floor, a ballot will be issued to members for voting purposes at the general meeting next month in June. So the floor is now open for any nominations for the executive committee from the floor. Gonna leave it open for about a minute or so in case people are.
Hi, hello, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Magali Troncoso. I'm the director of the Dominican Development Center here in Boston, Massachusetts. We organize immigrants communities, and we are very grassroots. And I don't see any representation from us from Massachusetts area. So I would like to nominate myself.
For which role? And
maybe as a general member, you know what I mean? I don't know, looking to be part of the executive committee right now, but to be a member.
A general member of the committee or a member of the executive committee?
Member of the committee.
Okay, this is for the executive committee election.
Oh, this is for the executive committee, but can I do the executive committee when I don't have I haven't been involved in this for a little while. I have been doing a lot of national meetings with National Alliance of Domestic Workers and the Alliance for Immigrant Community, but I don't know exactly if I can qualify to be part of the executive committee because.
Make sure that you've read the bylaws. There is a process which nominees.
But I had to do I have
organizational endorsement.
So I had to do an application to, because you asking from the floor, no?
Yes, but the bylaws still set out kind of the rules for who can be nominated for which positions and the process that they need to go through for their organization to endorse them. There is lots of information going through the chat right now. The bylaws are linked. You do have to be a fully paid up member of NGO CSW. Your organization has to be EcoSoc accredited. You have to be based in New York. So there are quite a few criteria that are in the bylaws.
In New York, okay.
Yeah, Cecily, perhaps I need to intervene just to give a little background. First of all, Magelis, I'm so honored that you're interested in working with us. You should definitely be a member of NGO CSW, and you're not too far that you can visit, and also we can support you in any way we can. This used to happen in person. That's one of the reasons why I said our international or outside of New York members are usually not involved in the executive committee planning and membership. But because we're not meeting in person anymore, we have to do this on Zoom.
Oh, I see what you mean.
But please do not get disappointed that you're not part of executive committee, because especially if you have not been involved for a while, it's best that you start joining us on monthly meetings, get our emails. I'm assuming you get our emails. So please join us in working in your capacity so that your work is being heard as well. Best thing you can do is show up to monthly meetings, and then we will see you at the forum.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay.
But thank you so much for your interest. This is exactly how I got started, because I had no idea what NGO CSW was, but there are certain rules in the bylaws that we have to follow. And Cecily, I'm sorry if I broke in and just wanted to give.
No, that's fine with me, because now I'm clear, you know what I mean, about the whole process.
So. And I love that people are interested. It's wonderful. And I see Sarah's hand and Milagros, but really quickly, because we're past 4 minutes now. Sarah, go first.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe it's just a question or a proposal. Okay, at first, it was because you always have an in-person meeting. That is why those conditions were put. But now, since it goes to more on Zoom, I think it will be more balanced if we have executive committees from Africa and other regions, so that it will also voice the concerns of these other people within that space.
Yeah,
so,
and I definitely thank you for that intervention. Trust me, we have been talking about that for at least the 2 years that we've been meeting. The bottom line is that our goal is to have strong regional NGO CSWs. As you all know, on our website, we have listed regional NGO CSWs, and we want to strengthen those. I think the goal is for headquarters to be in New York and stay as a New York Executive Committee, because it is already hard enough to negotiate this time change zones. Like, we never are able to speak to our Asia Pacific. So for us to make any decisions in the global time zone would be almost impossible. And if anybody has solutions, email me directly. So it is really important for us to keep NGO CSW locally, but we are so committed to making our regions stronger. So if you can reach out to Femnet, Memory, Zonzua, Lois, we have some incredible leaders in the African region who we want them to collaborate with us more and bring our voices together more. So please work with them.
I have just like a quick question, because I'm reading here the membership application. This is just like an individual application. It's not for organization, because say young professional and general.
Yeah, it's individual. And honestly, it's free. Like, you don't have to pay to be a member. You can. We love your $50 or $25 donations, but you don't have to be a member to be part of NGO CSW globally. You do have to be a member to be part of executive committee, and you have to be local for that. But I'm going to move on because I know this. I knew these questions were going to come up, and I actually appreciate them. And I'm going to be here to answer as much as possible. I saw some.
Thank you very much. I just want to say something. I was about proposing Zone 0, and luckily enough, you called her name, because we used to work. I worked with her some time, and she's an excellent leader. So I was about proposing her to be one of the executive.
She is in Africa region. She's on our committee from Africa region, and I would love for her. She should have been here today. I mean, I'm not saying anything bad or mean. I'm just saying that I would have loved for her to be here today, but I'm sure she's really busy doing whatever it is that she's doing. They all were invited, trust me. Diane.
Thank you so much, Huri. So I agree totally with the proposal that Zone 0 should be at the executive process. So because we are working together in Cameroon, so it's a wonderful woman that making change in our country. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Have a nice day.
Yep. I mean, I think people who know me know I love Zanzua. So yeah, I'm not going to argue about that. And she does work really hard. She's the one that usually responds the most. So I'm kind of disappointed she's not here today. You can tell her I said so. It's still recording, so it's public. Anyway, but we do understand. Please engage, yes, regionally with our regions. And now I was so excited to hear I didn't make enough comments about Asia Pacific reviving again. Again, the time zones make it difficult, right? So we understand. Okay, so I'm going to hand the floor back to Cecily. I'm sorry, I just needed to answer some of those questions because I don't have a hat in the game at this point. My time is done on June 15. I've been so honored to serve you all for 4 years, and thank you so much. And I'm very excited for the next executive committee. I will still be around. People are asking me what I'm doing. I'll be ex officio, but I have no votes. I'll just be there to support them and help them. Thank you, Cecily. The floor is yours again to end.
So hearing no nominations for the NGO CSW New York Executive Committee, I think we're going to move forward with the slate for endorsement by the membership at the June meeting. And to those on the slate, thank you again. I know that you'll have the full support of everyone on the committee as we go forward together, and that you'll do such a wonderful job. You all are very talented, well-connected, and you have so much capacity. So I'm excited for the future of the executive committee. Thanks.
Thanks again, everyone, and the nominating committee. Oh yeah, you can unmute yourselves. We have to do what we usually do. I can't believe 100 people are still here. Unmute yourselves as to say goodbye. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.